I'm gonna start this episode off with, if you had to pray somebody up out your heart and about your life, you better never go back to them. Now let's get into it. Have you ever loved somebody so much that you had to pray to get your mind back? Because I have. And now that it's over, because in hindsight, it really wasn't love. I guess it was attachment. But the way I showed up and cared for that person, I shouldn't have been treated the way I was treated. And a lot of us feel the same way, because I have had to pray my mind back. And when I say I loved this man, I mean I loved him so deeply that I started losing my connection to myself. I didn't have a life outside that boy. I was with him since I was in high school. So for a long time, my identity was attached to being his girlfriend, being with him, making the relationship work, understanding him, forgiving him, and trying to figure out what was normal and what wasn't. And this is why I don't like when people say girls shouldn't have a lot of different boyfriends or shouldn't talk to a lot of different people, because that makes them think they have to stay with someone who is mistreating them and being blatantly disrespectful. And that's the scary part about loving somebody for a long time. Sometimes you don't realize you're losing yourself because it happens little by little. You stop going out, you stop seeing people, you stop doing the things you used to enjoy, you start questioning your own judgment, and eventually you're sitting there wondering, how did I even get here? So, this is for the women who loved somebody so much that she abandoned herself trying to keep them. Because I need you to understand something I wish I had understood sooner. If you have to lose your mind to love somebody, that's not love you need to hold on to. I didn't have a life outside of that boy. And when you're young and you've been with somebody since high school, it's very easy for the relationship to become your entire world. You're growing up together, you're learning together, you're figuring life out together. And you start believing that because you've been together for so long, you have to make it work. But longevity doesn't automatically make a relationship healthy. And you see how many men try to say, we need relationships like back in the day where they stayed together for 30, 40 years. No. And I was also trying to figure out what I was supposed to do based on what I was seeing from other people. People would tell me men cheat, men do this, men do that. And then I'd get online and see women talking about their experiences. And I'd be trying to filter through all of this information. Should I leave? Should I stay? Is this normal? Am I overreacting? Is this just what relationships are? Like when you, especially if you're in a relationship since you're very young, your teen, high school years, you really don't know, especially if you haven't seen anything healthy. And let me tell you something, you can consume so much relationship content that you start outsourcing your own judgment. Everybody online has an opinion about what women should tolerate, but you have to pay attention to what is actually happening in your life. Because I started accepting things that I shouldn't have been accepting. I got overweight, I got big, I didn't want to go anywhere anymore. I became more isolated. It was constantly beating at my self esteem. And part of that was because I allowed this man to manipulate me into thinking that going out was something that ghetto or ratchet people did. So I stopped going. I stopped living. I started shrinking myself. Meanwhile, he was perfectly comfortable going out and doing whatever he wanted to do. He was so comfortable knowing that he was out here having fun, cheating, and trying to find his next girl while I'm at home waiting for him. He knew I would be at home every single day. Every single day, he knew it. He was comfortable with that. And that is something I want women to pay attention to, because sometimes manipulation doesn't sound like you can't go anywhere. Sometimes it sounds like, why do you want to go out? Those people aren't like us. You on a different level from them. That's not classy. All them whores are ratchet. Why do you want to be around those type of people? And before you know it, you adopted somebody else's limitations as your lifestyle. Before you know it, you have been gaslit and successfully manipulated. Meanwhile, they're not living by the same rules they're giving you. And that's when you have to step back and say, wait a minute, why am I sitting in the house restricting my life while this person is out living theirs? And you know they out trying to catch other women. That was a huge lesson for me because I had to realize that I wasn't just dealing with somebody else's disrespect. I was participating in my own. I was participating in my own disappearance. And I'm not saying to blame yourself. I'm not saying that to blame yourself. I'm saying it because there comes a point where you have to take your life back. There were people telling me things. There were signs. There were moments where I knew something wasn't right. But when you love somebody deeply, you can become an expert at explaining away what they're doing. You start saying, maybe he didn't mean it like that, or maybe I'm being too sensitive. Maybe the relationships are just hard and this too shall pass. Maybe everybody goes through this. And even if everybody does go through that, that doesn't mean you have to tolerate it. Because let's be clear, a lot of women go through the same struggles with these men, and it's not right. Maybe I need to be more understanding. No, absolutely not. Sometimes disrespect is exactly what it looks like. And I want to say this especially to women who are currently in the beginning stages of something that doesn't feel right. If you seeing the small signs of disrespect, you need to get out. I don't care how much you are infatuated. That's exactly what it is. You're infatuated with the man or with the thought of him. You're romanticizing the thought of him. I don't care. You need to get out because you cannot build a healthy future on top of that type of behavior because you're already making excuses for it. The small disrespect doesn't magically become respect because you stay longer. And a man who is comfortable disrespecting you today doesn't become completely different person because you loved him harder. And sometimes women wait for the disrespect to become extreme before they give themselves permission to leave. But you don't need a dramatic ending. You do not need a cheating scandal. You don't need to catch somebody doing something unforgivable. And you don't need everybody else to agree with you. This is how they get us. If the relationship is consistently making you smaller, more isolated, more insecure, more confused, and further away from yourself, that is enough information. And I had to get to a point where I realized I don't want to spend my entire life trying to convince somebody to treat me well. I don't want to spend my youth monitoring somebody. Will have you on edge. Do you hear me? It will have you on edge. It will have you constantly, like, it will fuck up your nervous system. I don't want to spend my life sitting in a house afraid to live because somebody convinced me that I was beneath that because somebody convinced me that living was beneath me. They try to make you feel like you're above all that. No, absolutely not. I never want to hear it. I never want to hear it. And most importantly, I don't want to lose myself trying to keep somebody who isn't afraid to lose me. I can guarantee you while you stuck in that house, that man is outside acting single. Because eventually I had to pray for my mind back. I had to pray for myself again. And getting yourself back after you centered your entire life around another person is a process. You have to remember what you liked. You have to figure out who you are. You have to reconnect with your friends again or make new friends. 9 times out of 10, you've fallen out with your friends over some mess that he's done. You have to get comfortable going places alone. You have to take care of your body again. You have to start making decisions without asking yourself how somebody else is going to react. You have to rebuild your confidence, and you have to stop romanticizing the version of the relationship you wish you had, the one you were promised. Because sometimes we're not holding on to the man, we're holding on to the memories and who he was when we first met him, but that wasn't even him. We're holding on to the potential. We're holding on to the years we've already invested, and we're terrified that leaving means all of that time was wasted. But, baby, the time is already gone and it's never wasted. Money can't even buy you those type of lessons. So, the question is, are you going to sacrifice even more of your life trying to make the past work? Because I don't care how much you love somebody or how much time you put in. If loving them or staying with them requires you to abandon yourself, you have to choose yourself. And I know that's easier said than done, but baby, once you get a taste of choosing yourself, I promise you, there is a version of you on the other side of that relationship who is going to look back and say, girl, what were you doing? And you're going to realize that you didn't need to become a better woman for him. You needed to become free enough to become yourself again, or a better version of yourself, because you will never be yourself again. And that's a good thing, because the version of you before you met him is what even allowed you to get pulled in. It's a good thing. You will never be that person again. So if you're watching this and you're thinking about a relationship you've been trying to so hard to save, I want you to think about this. Who have you become since being with this person? Not who you were when you met him, who you are now. Men are very sneaky and manipulative. Are you happier now? Are you healthier and more confident now? Are you living your life? Are you being surrounded by people who love you? Do not isolate yourself away from your people. Or have you become smaller, quieter, and more isolated? Are you more insecure and you're constantly worried about keeping somebody else happy? Because love is not supposed to cost you your entire identity. And please stop waiting for disrespect to become devastating before you believe yourself. If you see the signs, you need to listen. If you feel yourself disappearing, you need to listen. If you have to constantly convince yourself that something isn't that bad, you need to be listening. You don't have to wait until you're completely broken to leave. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is admit that this is not the life I want anymore. And you shouldn't care if somebody say, well, dang, none of your relationships are working out. You're dang right. You're dang right. And tell them every time they ain't working out, you're going to leave. And then choose yourself. I had to pray for my mind back. But when I got myself back, I realized I was never asking for too much. I had just been asking the wrong person. And I hope if you're in that place right now, you give yourself permission to get your life back too. This is Pretty Girl Rich Era, where we heal, level up, and become the best version of ourselves. As always, I'll see you in the next one. Bye, loves.